How's it going, guys? We'll be in just a second, just giving people a chance to log on. How's it going, Benny? You alright, mate? Hello, Simon. I know you're a big follower of Adrian's work. Good to see you logging on. How's it going, Stacey? You alright? Just giving chance people to log on. A few of you logging on now, so I'll switch that round back to me and have a quick chat. If only, Simon, if only. I've had very little practice at this game. I can tell you now, I've had a few hardware issues, which I'll go into in a second, so we'll talk about in just a minute. How's it going, Stacey? You alright? Yo, Benny. Doing alright, thanks, mate. Bit of time off work, certainly helping me, that's for sure. So, in fact, I was speaking to a couple of people today, saw a couple of people, said I'm seem to be doing alright, so hopefully this time off's going to be okay. Just move some rubbish out of the way, and then I can get down to this properly. Oh. Right. So, how's it going, Mike? You alright, mate? Forward to this. Not really had chance to get as much chance to get to grips with this beforehand as I usually do, so I'm going to be winging this by the seat of my pants. Yeah, I definitely need the break, Benny, you know, and this is why I'm doing a lot of things like this now. You know, I want to work on my own game. I want to be, you know, continuing to push the next. I've also got other projects I've got to do, you know, there's editing and stuff to be done, so I'll be getting round to that soon as possible. So right, for people just joining us, I'll switch to me in a second, but as you can see today, we are covering Dweebs Drop. This is the latest Spectrum Next game that's going to be released, out in just a couple of days. I believe it's out on this Sunday at 6 PM, so you'll be able to go online and order this, and it will be another physical release, so the 4th physical release. All from the same man, from Adrian Cummins of Software Amusements / Spectrum Next Games. Stacey, you definitely should, mate. So this game is, like I say, it's the 4th one that he's come out with. He's gone in a different direction with this one. And one of the most special things about this game is that this game is probably the first simultaneous versus 2-player game, head-to-head. That is going to be released for the system, which is quite cool. I, of course, am working on something which may have 2-player implemented. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, Adrian's a quick worker, and you know, following on from Montana Mike and the Gold Collection, he's now come out with this, which is due to come out on Sunday. So I'm going to switch back to me for a second, and I'm going to quickly reset this so I can turn the music off for a minute. So, I know not all of you like to look at my ugly mush, but you're going to have to, I'm sorry, because I don't like talking to myself. So, anyway, hi, how's it going? Welcome to another YamYam Retro Gaming live stream. I know some of you have already seen this, and you've obviously seen my earlier videos covering Software Amusement's first 3 releases for the Spectrum Next. This is the next one coming up, called Dweebs Drop. It's a 2-player puzzle game. You've got 1 or 2-player modes on there. Very much in the vein of things like Columns and things like that you would remember from the Sega platforms back in the day. and it's looking quite cool. It's a little bit simpler compared to the earlier games, I would say, because it's more of a static screen affair. But like I say, it's got that two-player mode, and that's something that Spectrum Gaming definitely needed. Back in the day, there weren't enough two-player games. You needed two-player interface if you wanted to use proper joysticks or whatever. And, you know, people are starting to utilise it more now. You know, we've got support for joypads and things like that. So I think it's really cool that somebody's brought out at least a game now that we can test that with, because who doesn't love two-player games? And if you're going to do it, puzzle games are okay, but they're always best enjoyed, I think, you know, against someone. So I think that's pretty cool. I know some of you have already seen this. You would have seen it on a YouTube video probably just a few days ago now, maybe a week ago, from Dom Robinson, a friend of mine. He does a lot of stuff on YouTube under the name DVD Fever. He did a live capture of it through the C-Spect emulator. For any of you out there who haven't at the moment got a Next, or are waiting on your Next, or for some of you who won't be able to access a Next for a while, it's good really that the development team have put their efforts in and have created an emulator from the off. So at least you will, as long as you can get hold of the games, and I'd encourage you all to pay for proper licensed games. You know, get the original, support these people, get the original games, and then play them. You can just take the files from your thing and play them on your emulator. It's only a few quid. These aren't massive amounts, and at least you'll be supporting further development. I'll certainly be buying people's copies of I know I get sent them to review and things like that. How's it going, Lampros? You're right. But, you know, I'd encourage anybody to get them. And if you haven't got access to a Next, try them on the emulator. The C-Spect emulator is pretty much bang on. It's constantly being updated. And like I say, Dom managed to do a live capture using the C-Spect emulator to show you what the gameplay was like. But of course, that doesn't go with any kind of narrative, and it's not using original hardware. So I just wanted to do a video, as I've done for the other games, for all the other guys that I'm previewing, and for Adrian himself, who's obviously starting to actually publish his games and release them as physically and digitally. I wanted to do a video and show you how it is for me playing it first time, you know, as a gamer, you know, as a consumer, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to switch back to it in just a second and talk about it in a bit more detail. I just wanted to say I have been away for a while. The reason I've got this a bit later, Adrian was giving me the heads up on any new stuff that he was working on, because he knows obviously that I will put it out there and give people my thoughts on it. But because I took a bit of a break from the internet, I've been away for a little while, he was just giving me a bit of a chance of a breather. So I'm a bit late to the punch with this one, I'm sorry about that. But I have got some other cool things to cover. Coming up, I've been sent a review copy of the new art editing tool, the On Spectrum Next editing tool by David Safier. He's done an art package for it where you can do things like cycling colours for animations and things like that. Very much like Amiga art packages and things like that. He sent me a review copy of that with no instructions, so I'm going to have to need a few days to get to grips with that. It'll be the first thing you'll see live played using actually a mouse, so you'll see, you know, how well that responds with a mouse, and I'll be trying to do some kind of art live on it. I'm not an artist, but I do have that coming up, but I need a good few days to be able to, you know, get my shit together basically and show that one in a bit more detail. I've also been contacted by one of the guys from ZX Renew. They're actually responsible for doing modifications for your old Spectrums, like case mods, cable mods, controller mods and things like that, keyboard mods. And they've actually done some for the Next, for people who are retrofitting the boards into systems. And they're going to be sending me some cool stuff to pimp up my Next with, because I was only saying at events recently, my Next is looking a bit shabby. I mean, it's been very well done by the guy I bought it off, Zeb, whilst I wait for my full cased version. He's retrofitted it into an original 48k case, but the case itself is starting to look a little bit tired. It's obviously just been dremeled for access ports and things like that. And when we had it at Revival Winter Zapped in November, it just looked horrible compared to all the other guys who've got all theirs done up. So he's going to be sending me some case mods and some other bits of literature and things. And he will also be attending Revival 2019. So anybody who wants to be able to modify their Spectrum, original Spectrums, or their Spectrum Next, they're going to be there, and they're quite possibly going to be doing live upgrades and also taking orders to take them away. So going to be really cool. But yeah, I'm going to be covering that because I want to cover all things Next, and I'm pretty sure when the second production run comes, they won't just be doing case Next, they will probably do project boards, because I suppose it's in the same spirit of the Sinclair brand. You know, back in the day, you were able to get your Sinclair product as like a kit and do that up. So, you know, if they give the boards out like that, then people can then case them up as they want to. And some people want to go with a kind of retro look, so that's brilliant. But we'll see how that goes anyway. Mike's throwing you a bit of information there, Paul. Obviously, the case is now coming to completion. A lot of people are getting really excited for the Next now because it is literally around the corner. I know I've been saying that for a while, but it's literally around the corner, and I guess there's been a lot to factor in with overseas shipping, overseas production, testing. I know there's been a few errors in it and things like that, but you know what? It's looking good. It's nearly there, and because you know people are starting to get a bit tetchy now, and I can understand that because you know things like the Vega are kind of, you know, memories of the Vega are dying hard. And there's other people there who, you know, it has been a long time now, you know, since we first heard about the system. It's been 3 years, and it will have been nearly 2 years by the time we actually get the system after the Kickstarter. So we're nearly there, and I've got every faith that it's coming. It's easy for me to take it for granted because I've got a Next to use. But obviously, it's so I can do these things. I use it for the shows to demonstrate other people's work, and obviously now I'm co-developing a game on my own for it, which you know I'm really honoured to be doing. So some people might say that means I'm not the most objective when it comes to looking at other people's games, but I started doing that before I started developing. And at the end of the day, I'm a big fan of this system. That's what it is. I'm looking at this as I did as a young boy when I first played the Spectrum. And the Spectrum Next is bringing a lot of that back. I've spoken a lot about that before. Check my other videos if you want to hear about it. But as far as this goes, I just want to continue to show, you know, other people's work, the development work that's going on. You wouldn't believe the amount of game people were saying. You know, where's the real meat? Where are the games? The only person producing things is Adrian. After Winter's Act, people really started to see how other people are getting on. We had things there from obviously Rusty Pixels. We had stuff from Jim and Mike Ware. We had stuff there from Mike Daly. We had stuff there from John McManus working with Cy Butler and Sid Manhesso. We also had Kev Brady there, and they were showing off some awesome things there and giving a little teasers about things that are coming up. So you've got to stay posted. There's little clues coming up in the games and stuff that are going to be released in things like the headers on the social media pages and things like that. So stay posted because there's little clues as to what's coming out there. I've been privy to see some things that not many people have, and people who've been to the events will have seen it as well. And there are some superb games coming out now. I think by the time the system comes out, there's going to be, as Mike says there, yeah, there's about, someone had rumoured that we're up to 50 games in development, and everyone was saying, where are they? I can now probably say I've seen evidence of up to about 20 that are going to be ready on or around launch date, which, you know, is nothing compared to the old Spectrum, I'm sure, when you compare it to modern consoles and that they're only launching 1 or 2 games. You know, I think it's really cool, and they're going to be cheap games. You're going to be able to buy a Next and buy the entire library, and I think it's going to be awesome. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be brilliant. So anyway, I've talked enough. You want to see what's going on. Just so we're going to switch around now to the screen, and right, I'm going to give you a little bit of background before we do this, and I'm going to give a little bit of a disclaimer on this. My Spectrum Next has actually been running kind of a development version of the firmware and the software. When I first tried to run this game the other day, I had problems. I had problems running it initially, and it's nothing to do with the game, it's nothing to do with the coding, it's to do with settings that I've messed around with a lot. Now I have updated my system for this, to the latest public release of the firmware and the ZXOS. So it should be perfect in theory, but I'm still noticing a few artifacts which didn't appear on Dom's video and which I haven't seen. Which, you know, I've spoken with Adrian backwards and forwards trying to get it perfect, but my setup isn't ideal. But the game itself is very solid, so we're gonna call that up and we're gonna show you what's what. So first of all, I haven't got a physical copy of the game. It was too late to get that this time, but I've been sent a review version. So things in this may be subject to, I've had slight bug fixes or slight changes before they were sent off, so set up for duplication, but I haven't got an original SD to do this from, so I think the user experience will be a little bit better than what I'm showing here, purely because it's to do with the way my Next is set up. Commercial Next will all be set up properly, and the games have been designed to work perfectly with those. So if you do see any things like graphics artifacting, it's nothing to do with the coding of the game, it's to do with my Spectrum. I've tried to sort it out before I do this video, but I don't want to put it off any longer because the game is out at the weekend. So anyway, I've got my Next set up, and you can see I've set it up with my trusty QuickShot 2 Turbo Kempston joystick. This is an original from back in the day that I've touched up, and I've also got plugged in my Competition Pro Sega Mega Drive pad. I love this pad. This is the pad I've been using when I've been testing my own game on here, and I'm really glad they added Mega Drive joypad support. One thing I'm going to note though, and I don't know if this is to do with my setup or the preview version or whatever, when I've been testing my game, I don't actually need to set anything up in order to use Kempston joysticks or these joypads or keyboard. It all works from the off. In the startup BIOS for the Next, for Adrian's games, I do have to set the joystick ports to be Kempston 1 and Kempston 2. I'm not quite sure of the ins and outs. I'm not a developer, so I don't know the ins and outs of that. But that is the correct way you're supposed to do it. And so these are both set up to be recognised as Kempston devices. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Adrian, for jumping on. I appreciate that. Please don't be mad if you do see anything on here. I've already explained the situation to everybody. It's nothing to do with the final product, and I understand that. I think everybody understands that. Everyone's seen your other games and they are bug free, so I know it's nothing to do with the way they've been coded. So anyway, we've got the two pads plugged in straight away, so we will browse our way down to the game. I've had to set my system to 50 Hz because I've been told the review version only works in 50 Hz, so I've set it up for 50 Hz instead of the 60 Hz I'm usually in for development. And if I go down to Next Games, I'm so glad I got a fixed membrane fixed membrane ribbon connection for my keyboard, because it works so much better now. I was unfortunate enough to tear it while I was reviewing one of the last games, so it works again now. And we go to Dweebs Drop review. We'll quickly go to the help file first, just so you can take a look at what Adrian's put here for support. There we go. Thank you for purchasing. I'll read it out because you might not be able to make it out in the video. Thanks for purchasing the digital download version of Dweebs Drop. Once you've downloaded the zip file, please unzip it, copy it to your own SD card. For anybody who hasn't seen the videos before, Adrian has set up a way of auto booting an SD card that's got a game on it, but you are perfectly, and it does say within the license in there, you've got permission to basically copy the files into the games folder of your SD card that you use for using your other Spectrum games or for development or however you use your Next. Your SD card is basically your hard drive when you're using your Next. So you can copy the games from one SD card onto this SD card if you want them all in one place. I still like to have a physical copy, even though that's how I tend to run my Next. You can also run it on C-Spec. There you go, it even gives instructions on how to run it in C-Spec. There's a few notes about the configs. Some of that might be subject to change with the final version, but you can see there it mentions at the bottom about using Kempston joysticks on a real Next is slightly different to the emulator. So Adrian has thought of all avenues here when he's trying to teach you about how to use the system and how to load the game. So that's quite good. It's nice to have physical instructions, but it makes more sense to have, you know, digital instructions these days. It saves a few quid, and it's still kind of retro because you're looking at this 8-bit text style. You know what I mean? It's quite cool. There you go, and there's a link to the website. From what I understand, like I say, the website's just been updated now with the checkout system. This game will be available as a digital download, I think, for £4.50, a little bit cheaper this time. Around £4.50 as a digital download, and for £10.99 as a physical release from 6 PM this Sunday. And kindly of Adrian, 10% of each of these purchases this time is going to cancer research, and I'm sure that's a cause that everybody supports. I have a monthly donation that goes to them every month for sure, because cancer's touched my life, so I think that's a really cool thing that he's doing. So we'll come out of that and we'll go back to the game now. We'll launch the game up and we'll see what we've got. Now you can see we've got it on here in snapshot or tape file, and there's also there a batch launcher there if you're using the C-Spect emulator. I imagine it works the same way when you're going to get the digital download if you buy it yourself, but this is just a preview version on here. It's not the full game, so there's some features that are missing, but it's just to show you the gameplay and show you how well it works. So we're just going to load the snapshot file here, and rather nicely Adrian's added his own little kind of Easter egg bit at the front here, which is quite cool. And we are into the game. So, from what I understand, Adrian developed a game many years ago using these things called the Dweebs. Just a bit of background for you. And I can't remember what platform it's for. I believe it might have been Amiga or something like that. Adrian will be able to tell you best because he's following this. And yeah, he used these characters called the Dweebs, and having discussions with him not long ago, I said, well, why not utilise them in some way for an upcoming game? Yeah, he's utilising this, and it's perfect really. So we'll hit fire on player one joystick, and you can see the instructions there. You just need to match 3 dweebs or gems. You can actually select between the 2 on the title screen, and you match them up in a line, and then it eradicates them from your screen. If you hit black dweebs or gems, you will add rows to your opponent. It is a versus kind of puzzle game, so even if you're playing one player, you're playing against an AI opponent, and so a bit like 2-player Tetris, however well you perform will dump crap onto your opponent. So, and then you've got special things like the eggs or the rainbow gems. So if you've ever played things like Puzzle Fighter, I think I discussed this with Adrian a lot when he started development on this. Puzzle Fighter is a game that I like a lot, and the versus element of that was always really cool. So, you know, it's it's kind of a mashup of columns, Tetris, and Puzzle Fighter, and I'm sure those are games that all of you out there have played. Then you've got these large gems or large dweebs, which score you more points. So off we go. You can see there the keys are already mapped out at the top. No messing about. We're just going to press fire, and then you're presented with this screen. Like I say, there's a little bit of artifacting there at the bottom. You can just make out that's just to do with my setup. It's not to do with the actual game. So you've got 1-player game, which is you against Schnoodle. Schnoodle, I believe, is Adrian's little dachshund that he's got. He's now your enemy on this. We've got a 2-player head-to-head mode there, which you can select all this with the joystick or the keyboard, and you can pick to play with either gems called the dragon gems or the dweebs. Now I prefer myself to play with the actual dweebs because the dweebs, you know, they've got some character to them, so I prefer to play with those. And then we've got difficulty setting there. We've just got normal and hard. I don't know if any more difficult settings will be added, but those are the options we've got. We're just going to go in normal for now so I can show you the gameplay. And if we press fire, it will take us straight into the game. And off we go. You can see Schnoodle in the bottom corner there. So I'm the player on the left, and you can see my dweebs at the top there, and we need to drop those into either vertical or horizontal lines. And obviously the big ones count as 2, so I need to drop 1 next to them to form a full line. Oh, I'll block myself off there. I didn't pay attention to what colour I had coming next. You can see in the middle of the screen there, you get clues as to what colour's coming next. We've got yellow there. Now, unlike columns, you can't do L-shape arrangements and things like that. You can't do diagonal arrangements. It's only vertical and horizontals. I'm guessing because of the size of the play field on this, you can't actually. Well, if you had diagonals and that, it would probably make the game a little bit too easy. So only verticals and horizontals are at play. Now, I'm not able to concentrate on the second player, but if you look at the second player, you can see that it's not just idly dropping dweebs down, it is actually using its brain. I imagine it's coded in a decent way, so it will be make some errors and things like that, but it is playing to try and compete with me. And right now he's not doing too bad. He's certainly scoring more than me because I'm talking more than I am playing. But yeah, I'm just getting on all right here. You can see an egg's appeared at the bottom of my screen there. If I hit that with a certain colour, it will destroy, or in a line, it will destroy all gems. Sorry, all dweebs of a similar colour that are on screen. Oh, I've completely blocked off my blues there. Bad move. And you can see that as time goes on, the number of dweebs actually increases from the bottom of the screen upwards. So you've got to kind of play fast, but play careful. Sorry if my joystick's a bit clicky, that's just the nature of this joystick, but I am a big fan of this joystick. I'm used to playing with arcade controls, so clicky sticks and clicky buttons are what I'm used to. Could do another blue, rather sharpish. Have I got one coming up? Yes, next. That's what we like to see. Boom. Yeah, we'll clear that space next. Oh, so wait for green, really. Not doing too good here. Fold that off over there. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Really need to eliminate them greens there. See if we can get rid of them from the top at least. So like I say, if you're paying attention, if you look over on the right hand side, he's scoring a lot more than me. Now, oh damn it! Unlike other games where you would basically, it would be the first to get your screen filled. If you do die if your screen is filled, however, the other players are allowed to carry on going. So if they've still scored less than you at the time you've died, they've then got a chance to catch up with you, but they could still die even though you died first, and they would lose. So the rules are slightly different to what they are on Columns or Puzzle Fighter. But you can see the obvious nods here. Oh, I'm in a danger zone now. I need to get rid of those reds. There we go. Oh, and the yellow is perfect. So, I mean, the action speeds up slightly. The further you go on, I do believe the levels rise a bit faster in the background. And I don't know if the enemy becomes more fierce, but certainly as you're thinking on your feet. What I do like about it is that puzzle games, you know, they're great on your own, but they're better played with somebody else. I've not had a chance to play this much, but it's so easy to get into. That is definitely a plus going for this game. It's certainly simpler to look at than the other games that Adrian has done. And I will be honest in that I'm not a fan of all puzzle games. I do like puzzle games. And I do think that in single player mode this might have limited appeal. But the fact that it's single player but against an AI opponent rather than just against the screen rising or the speed certainly adds a little bit of challenge there. And I can imagine that we will break this out come event time and get challenges going on there, because who doesn't love multiplayer games? The original Spectrum, of course, never really had enough multiplayer games, and a lot of games were one-player affairs or taking it in turns, and that's never the same as good old-fashioned head-to-head play. That's how arcade games were, and that's how, you know, that's how the best multiplayer experiences are, in my opinion. So, really good. I'm just going to pause my action there for a minute because the computer's about to die. Even though the computer's absolutely walloping me in score, because I've been talking. I just want to talk about a few of the points. As far as coding and gameplay and everything goes, I mean, from what I've seen of it, I have played it quite a few times over the last couple of days. Not as much as I would have liked to, but just a couple of things I want to point out. It's definitely a little bit more simplistic than some of the other games Adrian's done. I know there were some comments on other videos that I've done about some of the animations and things like that. For the speed Adrian does his games, I've been very pleased with what he's done so far. You know, he's done like, you know, action platformers and space shoots and things like that. And I would say they're more of a challenge to get graphically correct than this. And so I would say, you know, graphically, this is perfectly adequate. But in my mind, slightly less appealing than those earlier games, only because there's a lot more going on in things like action platformers or shooters. But for the type of game that it is, this fits perfectly. I might have liked to have seen slightly bigger play fields. Not for any other... I know you've got limitations of resolution, so it's perfectly understandable why they are the way they are, because obviously Adrian's wanted to give each of the coloured artifacts, gems, dweebs, whatever they are, some character, and you're limited to whatever your screen resolution is. I think I've just been spoilt with, you know, over the years with puzzle games that are using higher resolutions. You know, Puzzle Fighter would have had, say, a 10 or 12 gem wide play field by a lot more height. Obviously the limited size of the next screen is what limits that slightly, so I am conscious of that. But you know, the graphics are appealing. You've got some, you know, little animations on the dweebs, which I think gives it some character. If you've ever played Panic Bomber, which is the puzzle game based on Bomberman, this will look very familiar to you because the little characters animate on that. Or Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, very similar to that. You know, it reminds you a lot of that. Some people have accused well, not as Adrian, but Next Development as being a little bit derivative. You've got to remember that at this point in the game, all the genres have been done, you know, all the platforms have been done. You're going to see repeats of genres, and the older genres are going to work best on these systems. But you've got to remember that some genres weren't done very well on the Spectrum, and this is where I think the Next is going to come into its own, and what we're seeing in terms of development is really showing these things off, because a good puzzle game on the Spectrum was certainly possible back in the day, but without any kind of visual appeal, it might not have done quite as well. And I think that, you know, this has got some visual appeal. There are a few things I would have expected a little bit more of. I'm not such a big fan. It's nice to have an animated background because obviously you've got like a layer effect going on, but I'm not so sure about this grid. It actually throws me a little bit in terms of my gameplay, but that's just a personal preference, you know. That's just me griping, you know. I'm nitpicking there, you know. Right, just going to have a quick look at some of your comments because I've been yakking on for the last 10 minutes or so, and I'll see if I can address what you guys have been saying, so bear with me a second, guys. Right, the sprite bugs will be fixed. Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, so there is slight sprite bugs, and Adrian says that's being addressed. That's not a problem. Yes, I am on easy mode, so I have been making it look a bit easy there. I'll try it on hard mode in a minute, and we'll also see it with the gems to see if that makes a difference. One thing I did notice, and I noticed it more so with the dweebs and with the gems, the yellow and the orange dweebs are very similar. I don't know if it would have been beneficial to have made the dweebs, I don't know, slightly different in appearance, because I'm not colourblind, and yet those two can look very similar and throw you off when you're planning your screen. I wonder whether they should have been, I don't know, some other kind of colour. Maybe the orange could have been like some kind of deeper brown to distinguish it apart, because that still would have looked different from the black, you know. But that's just nitpicking, you know what I mean. But that is something, you know. You're on your fourth, you know, Adrian. I think it's fair to say, you know, you're on your fourth game now, and you know, I think it'd be good to see maybe just a few extra touches with things, you know what I mean. And I think, you know that yourself. as far as polish goes, this looks as stable and as, you know, neatly, cleanly done as I've seen from some of the other games. Better in some respects, and I do like, you know, I do like what I'm seeing here. I think it's got a lot of potential. Certainly in 2-player mode. We'll jump actually onto that, and we'll change to gems, and we'll go on 2-player mode just to show that working. So we'll tick dragon gems, and we'll go on head to head. And I don't know if difficulty affects 2-player mode, but we'll switch it to hard anyway. And off we go. So you can see this time we've got proper gems, slightly different colour background on this, and yeah, I'd say the colours are slightly easier to distinguish on the gems. The yellow and the orange, there's a definite distinction between the two. You know, even on this camera where you're getting a little bit of lens flare from looking at an LCD screen, you can distinguish the difference between yellow and orange on there. The purple, the red and the blue and the green obviously are quite drastically different, so that works quite well. But yeah, I mean, I could see this being a real good blast in 2-player mode. I'm actually having a gaming night in a couple of weeks' time. In fact, no, just over a week's time, where some of the revival crew will be coming around. So I'll be asking their opinions, as I always do, because so far they've been big fans of the games they've seen. They've been a big fan of Adrian's games for sure, so I'll ask what they think. And it'll be nice that, because we usually break out the 2-player games when they come round, it'll be nice that I've actually got a Spectrum Next game that's in 2-player, so we can give it a whirl and we can let you know, if we find it engaging or whatever. Something somebody's mentioned there would be nice to see. I mean, you've got cool title screen music. It's a shame there's no in-game music. We could probably do with a little bit of in-game music, because when it comes to puzzle games, I think it adds to the edge. But if there's not going to be any of that in the final game, play these games, slap your favourite soundtrack on in the background, you're good to go, But yeah, a little bit of extra music in game might have been nice for this, because with a puzzle game, you got less going on. You kind of want to see, or you want to hear something else to kind of keep you stoked, if you know what I mean. Some kind of soundtrack can make or break a game, So just something to bear in mind there. Like I say, not nitpicking. That's me playing with the joystick. I'm going to hop over to 2-player side now, play with the joypad, and I mean, the good thing is it feels just as great, as it does with the joystick. I can't play as well with the joypad as I used to anymore because of my dodgy hand, but everything feels solid, it feels responsive. And yeah, I think this is going to be a good game, especially in 2-player mode. I think this game will kind of come into its own. I mean, it's difficult to demonstrate that when you're playing it on your own, because you've not got any fierce competition. But I do think that, when two people are properly going at this and speed playing, you're really going to see the action. What I might actually do is, when I've got the guys round for gaming night, I might actually do a little bit of a live stream, just showing some live 2-player action on this, and see if, we get psyched up for it, see if we enjoy it that way. So, yeah, I'm going to kind of pause it there, because purely because it's not as in-depth a game as the games, the platformers. They've got millions of levels and things like that. But what it certainly is a fun puzzle game, and it's very much like games you will have played before. So again, I would encourage you to support all developers. There are more games coming out soon, and for the speed Adrian works at, I think these games are great. This one's a little bit cheaper than the last games he released, so there's really no excuse, even if you just go for it as a digital release. I mean, £4's nothing, you know what I mean? Jump on and get it. But I mean, I like to have the physical thing. I will get the full release, I will get the full cased version, and yeah, I think it's a worthy addition to the library. And again, it's a different genre that we haven't had so far, so more power to you for doing this, Adrian. Thank you for doing it. I'll read back some of your comments and comment on them myself in time, guys. But yeah, leave your comments for Adrian. I'm sure they'll be a benefit to him. But that was Dweebs Drop anyway for the Spectrum Next. Like I say, I will be back soon, and I will be showing you more coverage of upcoming games that are coming. I'll be covering the D, I think it's D-Spect it's called. That's David Safier's art package. I'll be covering that. I'll be covering Spectrum case mods. We'll be looking at those. And I'll also be covering a little bit more development on the next. As far as YamYam Retro Gaming goes, I'll also be doing some more with my rare systems. I've now got all the bits together to do some of those. So I'll be covering up some more modifications. So I'll be showing you how to mod your PS Mini. I'll also be showing you how to modify the Sony PSX. And I'll be showing you how to showing you some more rare consoles like the Twin Famicom, and I've got some other systems coming up as well as some really good retro gear. So stay posted to YamYam Retro Gaming. I am back now, and I'll be doing a lot more regular streams again. Hopefully, probably not 2 or 3 a week or something like that, but if I can get a stream out a week, it's something entertaining to watch while you're sat on the bog or on your dinner break at work. If you don't watch them live, watch them back, because there's things you can always refer back to. I know I don't stream the traditional sense of the word, but I'm old school, you know, and I'm trying to give you gaming and retro gaming as I experience it now, you know, real. So, but anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to go off and have my tea now. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Take it easy.